if Newton and Manziel play. Cam, 3-1 when he faces Heisman winners in his entire career. Manziel, however, just trying to rebound from being shut out last week. So, Skip Bayless, what do you expect from Johnny Football when he plays the Panthers?
Stephen A. Smith, I'm going to go way out on the limb here, and I'm going to say that Johnny Manziel will play a little better than he did in his first start in the National Football League. And I know people will laugh at that, but look, in all seriousness, Johnny got a little comeuppance last week. And I believe that Johnny was humbled and enlightened by what he went through last week in his first extended NFL action. And I told you going into the game, had only 12 NFL snaps. And I think he learned a lot about what he can't get away with in the National Football League. And that will benefit him going forward in the last two starts of this year and certainly springboarding into next year. Not even sure where he'll be next year. We'll talk about that after the year. But look, last Sunday, with LeBron James there, with the great Jim Brown in attendance, Johnny Manziel stunk it up. But as you pointed out on Monday, if possible, his team around him stunk it up at least as badly as Johnny Manziel did. They all found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time against a Cincinnati team that had blood in its eyes because of what Brian Hoyer and the Browns had done to the Bengals, they're a division rival, obviously, in Cincinnati on a Thursday night, 24-3. They wanted to rub little Johnny's nose in it, and did they ever, and they money signed him to death. Could that happen again this week? I remind you, Carolina has gathered itself. It won 41-10 at Drew Brees 2 weeks ago. Then without Cam, they did manage to beat Tampa Bay. So they have now won, after they lost 6 in a row earlier this year. Carolina's only a half game out in this pathetic division that is the NFC South. Only a half game out, having won 2 straight games. And now Johnny has to go in with one hand tied behind his back defensively because it sounds like Joe Hayden and Justin Gilbert, 2 of the better cornerbacks in the league, it sounds like they will not be able to play. So, again, could be wrong place, wrong time. But here's what I think will happen, Stephen A. I think that Johnny will start off the game throwing a lot more conventional, quick, safe, from the pocket passes, maybe a couple rollouts. But I'm talking about quick, easy passes that will be easily completed and get him in a little bit of rhythm and a little bit of flow that he never got into as he and that offense went 1 for 10 on third down last week and had a season low for the NFL, 38 plays run last week, which was just all-time pathetic. So I think he'll get off to a better start. I think this time you will start to see some flashes of why I believe Johnny Manziel will be a very successful NFL quarterback. But in the end, I just have to believe the Panthers are a little better. I think they'll win. I'm going to call it Cam 27, Johnny Football 20, again at Carolina.
I like that prediction. I'm more along the lines of 24-20. I think Johnny Manziel will have a better game. But I think right now, Skip, he just needs to prove that he can be a quarterback in the NFL because he didn't look that way last week. Let's stop at saying he's going to be good or he has the potential to be great or Kyle Shanahan saying that he's a playmaker, he's going to be good in this league. He went 10 for 18 for 80 yards last week. He looked hesitant and reluctant and, dare I say, ill-prepared. And I think that that's one of the things that stood out about me. Watching him play last week, Skip, he did not look like somebody that had been practicing and putting forth all the necessary due diligence. So when the opportunity presented itself, he would be ready. When I give my speeches to a lot of kids throughout this country, one of the things that I say is I steal a line from that movie Under Siege with Steven Seagal when they talked about how chance favors the prepared mind. You've got to go out there prepared and ready to roll. And I don't think that Johnny Manziel was ready because I think that somewhere along the line he was convinced that it was Hoyer's job and it was going to stay Hoyer's job and his time would come in the future, meaning next season and beyond, as opposed to this year. And although a lot was made about the work ethic that he was putting forth, etc., I got the impression from watching him that just didn't seem to be the case, because when you are prepared, you might make mistakes, Skip, because you simply got fooled or you simply got outplayed. But what you don't look is hesitant. because when you're prepared, you're pretty sure of yourself in terms of what you want to do. And so if you were doing things decisively, but they didn't work out, I would have more faith than as opposed to me seeing you be a bit reluctant and hesitant. And that's what I saw from him. And regardless of what the Carolina Panthers have been going through, they still have they're ranked 23rd defensively, 16th in yards allowed, but ranked 13th against the pass. Now, that's not great, but it's not sorry either. And against Johnny Manziel, the Johnny Manziel that we saw last week, you don't have to be great to be great against him, apparently. So he's got a lot to prove, and I think that he'll have an opportunity to do that. I actually think being on the road is going to help him in Carolina, because I think it's going to allow him to focus even more. And I think when the challenges present themselves, he's the kind of guy that responds to it, steps up to that challenge, and embraces it. Last week, it was different. It was home. He was caught up in all the euphoria, the expectations, and there was a lot of things on your mind. In this particular instance, it's making amends for that putrid performance combined with the fact that you're on the road. I think he'll perform better. I just don't think it'll be enough against Carolina this Sunday.
Allow me to close this with a line that I read, a great line I read from the great Bruce Arians this week as he prepared for their big game that we're going to talk about in the next segment, at home, obviously, against Seattle. He loves his rookie quarterback, Logan Thomas. Ron Jaworski, remember, raved about Logan Thomas during this preseason, saying he played the best in the preseason games that Ron looked at on tape this year of all the rookies. And yet, Bruce Arians said this week, when asked, why don't you just go ahead, instead of going with Ryan Lindley, who's just a journeyman who had been a bust for them the first time, why don't you just go with Logan Thomas? And he said, because you don't put a young player in a position to fail. Last week at home, Johnny Manziel got thrown into a position to fail, to me. He had just turned 22 years of age, had not played any extended snaps in the NFL, and he failed miserably. And again, Bruce Arians, who also loves Logan Thomas and may use him in a couple of packages, I don't know if you will or not, that's what they're speculating, but that was wisdom from a great teacher of quarterbacks.
I'm in no position to debate Bruce Arians. We both think he's great. He's a phenomenal coach, and he's done a lot, and he's proven a lot from his days at Temple to his days with Pittsburgh, with Ben Roethlisberger, to him filling in for Chuck Pagano when he was diagnosed with cancer, to being a head coach in Arizona. He's phenomenal. We understand that. But I would challenge whether or not he's actually seen Lindley perform. Does he have the tapes of Lindley against the New York Jets a couple of years ago? I actually had to go and cover that game. I listened to Mike Greenberg talk about it this morning. I listened to Mike Greenberg talk about this morning how he thought that Larry Fitzgerald should have retired on the spot. I couldn't agree more. What Larry Fitzgerald was subjected to in terms of the guy throwing him the football, that was one of the most abominable performances I've ever seen on a football field by Lindley against the Jets a couple of years ago. So I think that maybe Arians didn't see that tape.
He might have missed that tape.
I'm just guessing.
I'll save my comments for the next topic.
For the next topic. Stephen A., before we get out of here, Ron Rivera said, again, as I mentioned at the top of the segment here, that he believes Cam Newton will play. Do you think they should even risk it at this point? I know they're still in the playoff hunt because of their division, but do you believe Cam Newton should even play?
No, I do not. I'm very disappointed that he was playing. I really don't. I don't think he should be playing.
I'm shocked by that. I have absolutely zero problem with him playing.
Really?
Well, I think, first of all, the combination, if it's just the car accident, but they're saying he's fine and there's nothing to worry about, that's one thing, Skip. But it's the combination of the car accident, where exactly the injury was, combined with the fact that Cam Newton has been sacked more times than anybody in the NFL and hit more times than anybody in the NFL in the last 3 years. I think the combination of all of those things, combined with how the Carolina Panthers have looked this year, I think that with Cam Newton, you can have a long-range plan. They got a lot of improvement to do with that Carolina Panthers roster. They look bad a lot of times this year. I watched the game against the Eagles. I actually went back home and rewatched it earlier this week. And he was just, he was just blitzed. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. I TiVo these games, and I go back and I watch them.
I didn't know you watched the games.
You're like Stephen A. Jaworski.
Yes, he's watched 1,000 hours of video.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far, but I'm trying to keep up with you, Skip Bayless.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up with you, bro.
Okay.
You have no problem with that.
I have no problem because the last we saw Cam Newton a couple of weeks ago, he was beating Drew Brees at Drew Brees 41-10. They're only a half game out, and he says he is just fine. And we know about the transverse process, little fractures. Romo's done it. Bryce Petty did it. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Skip, we also know that players lie all the time about injuries. We know that, Skip. You know that when you're a competitor and you're that guy, you're usually lying about your health.
I think this is a great opportunity for Cam Newton to win over some in that locker room who don't believe in him. That's what I think.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Now, I agree with that.
All right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Stephen A. says he wonders if Bruce Arians ever watched the video of